Angie Thomas is an African-American writer and activist born in Jackson, Mississippi on September 20th, 1988. At the age of 6, following a shooting, her mother decided to take her to a library to show her that there was not only violence and pain in the world. And from that moment, she understood that writing was her passion. Angie Thomas was the first Black student to graduate in creative writing from Belhaven University, a white majority Christian college. Around that time, she learned of the murder by the police of the African-American Oscar Grant, and this episode became the inspiration for her first novel, also considered to be the most famous, The Hate U Give. The novel, which was released in 2017 and cinematically adapted a year later, made its debut at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for young adults, remaining in the top 10 for 67 weeks. The novel focuses on the life of Star Carter, a young African-American girl torn between two very contrasting realities. If on the one hand, she lives with her family in Garden Heights, an infamous neighborhood with an African-American majority, at the same time, she attends the prestigious Williamson Institute, where most of the students are white. Star's father, Maverick, a former gang member, has taught his 3 children, since they were young, how to behave in case the police stopped them. One weekend, after attending a party that later turned into a shooting, Star is brought home by her childhood friend Khalil, also an African American. The two are stopped by a policeman who orders Khalil to get out of the car. While Star remains motionless with her hands well visible, once out of the car, Khalil made the fatal mistake of reaching for a brush inside the car to comb his hair, that the policeman will mistake for a weapon, thus opening fire and killing the young boy. Star, extremely upset about the incident, decides to release an interview to the police to tell the tragic event while remaining anonymous. It will reveal, however, the name of the neighborhood gang, the King Lords, which Khalil worked for, who will take revenge on her and her family, forcing them to move to the home of Carlos, Star's uncle detective. After the grand jury releases the policeman involved in the murder without a charge, Garden Heights turns into a scenario of protest, and Star, increasingly indignant to the judicial system, decides to reveal her identity and begin to protest with her people for her rights. This will cause Star to move further and further away from Williamson's environment and some of her companions who disagree with her. After a protest, Star, her boyfriend Chris, her half-brother Seven, and Devontae, an old friend of Maverick's, remain trapped in his father's store due to a fire set by the King Lords. But fortunately, Star's family members manage to free them in time. The ending of the novel sees Star faithfully promising Khalil that she will no longer remain silent and will continue to fight against justice. The movie adaptation is presented for the first time in a world premiere on September 11, 2018, at the Toronto International Festival, and subsequently distributed in American movie theaters on October 19th. Directed by George Tillman Jr., the movie remains very faithful to the heart of the novel, although some changes have been made to the script. In the opening scene, a flashback is shown in which the Carter family is sitting at a table, and Maverick explains to young Star, Seven, and Sekani how to behave in case the police stop them. However, in the novel, this discussion occurs much later. In the movie, the relationship between Maverick and Lisa, Star's parents, highlights their strong union. However, details in the novel are omitted, such as the episode of his infidelity and the temporary breakup of the couple. Also, the scenes of many Garden Heights residents are not shown, except those in which Mr. Lewis, the barber owner next to Maverick's store, appears. Although Lewis is not a relevant character in the movie, in the novel, he will be the one who, once retired, will sell his store to Star's father. As for the kiss between Star and Khalil in the movie, we know that although the two had a strong interest in each other, this never happened in the novel. Another significant difference lies in the final scene, which involves Star's little brother Sakani as he grabs Maverick's gun to defend him from the King Lords, also not present in the novel. The predominant theme of the novel is racism, which manifests itself through police brutality and other episodes of violence. Some stereotypes about the African American community are put on display, which leads Star, as well as many others, to show only one version of themselves for fear of being discriminated against. These stereotypes also played a vital role in the death of her friend Khalil. The story also shows how important activism is. Star, the only witness to the killing of Khalil, despite being very afraid that something might happen to her, decides to tell what happened and to continue to fight against injustices that her community must undergo. Although the Black community is a minority in which violence and poverty often collide, the story highlights the sense of union and brotherhood that binds them. An example is when the entire neighborhood is committed to rebuilding Maverick's store following the King Lord's fire. Racism and stereotypes based on skin color are issues I've had to face my whole life, and unfortunately, they're still very current in our society. For this reason, I decided to analyze The Hate U Give, which, albeit strongly and explicitly, represents these two topics perfectly. Being biracial, I happen many times to feel divided between two completely different worlds, in which it's often difficult to identify, just as happened to Star. In the movie, she finds the courage to speak and even go against the people she loves for a just cause, facing it all with disarming courage and great tenacity. These actions of hers were of great inspiration to me and many other young people. The use of hip-hop music throughout the movie reflects Angie Thomas' desire to show reality without filters, highlighting Black culture. Angie, who has always been a fan of this musical genre and especially of Tupac Shakur, uses for the title of the novel a quote from the latter, which has become famous all over the world. Thug Life, whose acronym, The Hate U Give Little Infants Asks Everyone, actually has a very clear message. The hatred we pour out on children is then reflecting on all the others, starting a vicious circle that does not lead to any improvement. The fact that Khalil died from grabbing a simple brush represents police distrust of African Americans, who are often considered criminals. Indeed, the police officer believed that Khalil, being an African American, had a greater chance of having a weapon with him. Despite the climate of racism and hatred present in the story, the strong sense of belonging that binds Star's family is represented. The picture of Black Jesus and the photo of Malcolm X fully reflect the pride for the culture and their traditions, while the names of the three brothers, Star, Seven, and Sakani, mean respectively light, perfection, and joy.
When you're ready to talk, you talk. Don't ever let nobody make you be quiet. I ain't named you Star by accident.